Hey guys, Boris here, the new set is live and I hope all of you are having a great time. With the set launch, a single comp has started to take over ladder by a storm, and this would be this Viktor comp right here, which at the first glance might not seem as strong due to how cheap the board is. However, with the power budget of Viktor and how great of a tank Ilaoi 2 is, it is definitely amazing at securing you top 4 finishes. Therefore, let's quickly take a glance here at the cheat sheet that I've made, and as I mentioned, I'm going to start these rolling out, and the first one is going to be down in the link below as well. Now, the conditions that we're looking to play this comp would be either playing around a Shepherd opener with a Teemo or Lissandra item carrier, or something like a Zoe that we can pair already with that Mordekaiser. Those are going to be generally the best transitions. Now, we can play either from a Lost Streak with any kind of econ engine and a strong reroll augment, or try to tempo this comp into a level 9, where on level 9 we will be capping around either Bard if we have extra items, or any Aura 5 costs such as Morgana or Shen are great as well for that. The augments that are insane for this comp are obviously Bronze for Life, your Patience is a virtue. If you're going for the 3-low route from the Lost Streak, you want to be looking for something like a Prismatic Ticket, and for items, Continuous Conjuration or Staffsmith are great at securing your items. Now, other things to note is that if we manage the 2-star our board quite early, we do not need to be sitting on level 8 to be chasing this Nami too. Other thing is that Viktor does not really want mana items. His is low mana locked during his cast, therefore you want to stack as much AP as you can on this guy. And ideally we are playing around drone uplink, however the implants, which we're going to transition on the Nami once we have 3-item Viktor, or Biomatter for your Ilaoi is completely great. For Ilaoi's itemization is flexible, but you are going to want to sort out that anti-heal through the Sunfire, and Declaw is amazing in this meta. And if you have extra rods or tiers, you can try to go for Protector's Vow or Crown God, which are prime tank items. For gods, we are ideally playing around something like an Ahri or Yasuo that are either going to provide us the extra econ we want to push tempo or reroll, or Yasuo providing more power into this Viktor unit. Otherwise, Kayle is amazing, as some Radiant items such as Ghoul Gauntlet, Deathcap or Archangels are absolutely amazing. Our level 7 board generally would be dropping this Rust, and we can play around replace Nami with a Lulu as well. But once we have made it to level 8, or if we identify that we need extra frontline, this Rust is completely fine to slot there. We're going to positioning our Pike ideally on the opposite end of the enemy carry, providing just a little bit of a splash and protecting that Baya here, but because she's going to provide that AP buff for our team. Without further ado, let's jump in game with Dishsoap and see how he manages to pilot this comp. The gods for our game are going to be Ahri and Thresh, and I can already kind of guess that we are going to be leaning towards the Ahri's Blessing, as when you're playing with Thresh, you are down that Blessing pretty much whole of the stage 5, and you are going to be playing your way on the catch-up. It's already really great in comps that can cap extremely high, something if you're able to get to level 9 and already know that you're going to be quite stable in order to let it accumulate until something like a 6-2 when it's going, I would say, is on average around the same power level as some of these other blessings, and Ahri greatly plays into your econ situations and necessities. Now, we are starting out here holding on to this potential Rek'Sai, as playing around the Primordials is a form of an econ. Same goes with the Ezreal, and we have also picked up a Gragas, and we noted that our psionic item is the drone uplink, which is obviously the best one. Therefore, we have a potential to be playing around it, but we do not need to be holding on to this Gragas, as this psionic uplink is not uplink is not really going to be doing that much for ourselves until we make it to that actual Viktor. And we also opted to make 10 here by just selling units, and it's interesting to note that this opener does not really scream that we are going to be playing into Viktor, because we opt to also sell the Lissandra. We do not, when our only item slam here is this Even Shroud, so let's see how he manages to get there. For our augment pick, Treasure Hunt is something that we could consider if we wanted to be definitely going to be re-rolling, and still there is debate if the reroll is worth it. I believe it to be worth it if you're able to hit quite on decent pace or decent amounts of health. Then you have definitely potential to be playing for a win out. Otherwise, ideally you're tempoing into a top 4. Makeshift armor, generally good and decent in the lower amount of component starts. And we know that we do not have the Kayle as an option, but we do not have the strong board. Since we opted to make 10, we're not going to have a strong board. And Hustler, I am not a believer in this arm. I believe this is still going to be good and something like a 1-cost reroll, but otherwise I'm just not too big of a fan of it. Archsmith here is a Also a little bit counterintuitive with the Viktor here. The suggestion is, but Viktor is mana locked during his cast. Therefore, you want to be slamming as much AP on him as possible in order to just have him nuke the board. Warlord's Honor is a decent option if you are able to get your units on so that they are primed and ready for stage 4. An Epoch is just a generally decent econ option that you could be considering. So let's see what the Dishsoap decides here. Ideally, if you are taking an item augment on stage 2, one, you are playing from a tempo. But he's going to be going for it, and that seems that he's going to be committing to this Viktor game plan from here. And obviously it's going to be good. This is the Archangels is generally been considered as a little bit weaker of a AP item. However, it works quite nice with Viktor, as you are going to be wanting that rod economy. Therefore, for like a double jeweled gauntlet setups, therefore you just simply cannot afford to be making the death cap on every kind of possible way. Going to be a little bit downgrading our board here in order just to make these econ thresholds. We also give up on this Gragas and going to be playing around the Stargazers here, and I believe that we are just simply committing to a loss streak at this point in order to simply secure our components. However, we can see that there is already quite a few players that are playing quite open with these econ engines. Therefore, this is why this comp is so good at punishing the current meta if you're able to tempo it from a good spot. Because during stages 2 and 3, there's quite a lot of players that are playing weak boards, and even though they're going to be spiking on stage 4, it can compete with its power budget. Into this too much value board here as well, already Pantheon 2 picked up. The too much value board at the moment is quite good in the sense that you can fit in 6 2 costs on it. However, it does struggle with the cap, and your win out there is generally securing a 3-star 4 cost. For our selection here, now Precious Boons are good, but unfortunately his Blessing, as mentioned, is not that great, and we can just pick up Ari here since we are in a loss streak. Guaranteed 6 gold is going to be quite fine. Doesn't really matter, I believe. Here we're picking up the Aatrox here just simply to form a little bit stronger board, since that's going to be pairing with our Jax too. Thing to note about Jax is that this Jax unit is actually very crazy if you're able to 2-star him. He's extremely strong of a tank once you throw some items on him. Already picking up Ilaoi here, so going to slowly start transitioning. Yeah, we're going to transition this board nicely. We can already spot it. We can slot into the 3 Shepherd, and Shepherd is a trade that, if you have the opener for, is very good in a sense that the summon units always are great in early game when there are less of other units on the board, so you're essentially playing a unit up. But we are going to be taking losses here now, since our carry is this Lysandra one, and I believe Lysandra to be a better item carrier than the Teemo, since she just simply utilizes these items quite well, and Teemo generally being the attack speed lover. And we also have her paired, therefore simply having the item here on her is completely fine. And we queue into another loss streaker. This is the thing, if you're just trying to loss streak with something like, we do not have a loss streak augment really, but if you pick up something like calculated loss, it can get very tough to sack your board, and then you are sometimes having to oversack and getting punished for it. Therefore, be wary whenever you're playing for these loss streak positions. Going to be just leveling here, as we have made all our 50 gold, and otherwise might have considered it perhaps simply just to ensure that we're going to be killing these creeps. Slotting in a replicator with the Lysandra upgrade is going to provide us with the possibility to kill a couple of units perhaps. And our frontline should be generally alright at this point as well, still until at least the middle of stage 3. Already a Ilaoi pair, which is quite a great site for us. It's definitely one of the better ways to be stabilizing is around a strong front line, especially in the start of the set when people are still trying to figure out a stronger board. The first thing they're generally going to be lacking is this extra damage on their boards. And if you have a juiced up tank, even if your backline is not of the strongest of the departments, especially if you have something like a scaling, like here we have Archangels or a Rageblade, you're going to be able to overpower them. Opted to go for a tempo slam there with the Gargoyles, so even though it's not the strongest of the items, especially since our frontline is quite beefy like in amount of units that we're playing, and we do not want to be solo frontlining Ilaoi at least until we get to 3-star if that's our plan. Still going to value the tempo that we're getting here, wanting to fight with lives, and this is how the best players always secure placements. Cursed Crown is just definitely not to go although it's a tempo comp, we're not going to be taking this. Simply a little bit too much of damage, and we do not have that much to fit in our slots until we actually get it to level 9. Soul Awakening, greater for these something like Isaiah here, which loves to be auto-attacking a lot. Hold the line though, absolute prime. We're going to have this we have the summon unit, it's an extra frontline unit is going to count, and allows you to even juice up more Viktor. Simply with Viktor is pump as much AP as you can in this guy, and you're going to be doing just fine. Therefore, I'm assuming that we're going to be going with this selection, and you can see him already counting the units. Sweet treats. The thing with artifacts, this comp is not that. There's the Aura is the only artifact that I found to be doing quite decent on this comp. Otherwise, the Radiant items are a possibility, but he's going to be valuing a Prime Combat Augment here instead of the Gamble there. Since we believe that we only really need to itemize this Viktor and the Ilaoi in itself, the Nami items are going to get sorted out by the time we 2-star her in most cases. Picking up a Rammus is a potential flex unit if we manage to find Bastions, I believe. Simply going to be opening a possibility for us to also, since we have this Veigar right here, to just simply secure our front lines, always holding on our extra potential out. We can see that this player also has the drone uplink, but thankfully they are playing the 2-cost reroll and too much value reroll. They would have been looking to be playing around with a AD item on their own. For our next boon here, I believe the 7 rerolls is just going to be great. We have taken items, we have taken combat, and we are relying on the Sari to sort out the econ situation for us. And the tier is amazing in this comp, going to provide you with either a potential frontline item or, well, obviously our first prio is going to be securing that Void Staff as well. Do not make what is called a whatever. We're going to be going for our roll down right now. Opted to level aggressively in roll, but only found a single vector, but managed to pick up the Ilaoi 2 already from our boon. And we should be quite fine at this point as we have this front line up, and although they're fighting against a Bard, we are quite strong in that this Viktor scaling is just, the amount of damage he does with his drone is insane. Still have some of the free rerolls that we could potentially use up here if we wanted to dig perhaps for a copy, but if we win this round we can also make 40, so I do not perhaps want to be nuking our recon that much. But yeah, we're not going to be we're perhaps covering the Spirit Visage, I'm not sure, but should be a win here, since against this anima player seems that they are transitioning into anima to go into some form of a potential level 9 board. That's generally how you want to be playing anima right now, is either into a 4-cost or a 5-cost board instead of the reroll comp. Especially now with this Viktor players around, they're going to be pulling out all your Ilaoi, so your frontline, like this player Hydect here, if they're going for that reroll, they're going to be in a little bit of rough time, and obviously B are also going to be there, so we have to see. Do get a Jewel Gauntlet right there. Perhaps were we considering another Archangel, since that would complete our items a little bit nicer, would allow us to go for either a Steadfast and a Warbox of some sort. So yeah, going to be making that Archangel instead, transitioning that Sunfire onto the Raz there, and still took a little bit of our time to figure out the itemization, therefore did not exactly roll for the Viktor 2, but we can just see with the 3 items in the drone, this guy is just soloing these boards quite fine. Insane in its values. Here, Stand United seems as an immediate pick right there. Exiles has this issue in the current meta. If there are many melee carries, you're quite prone to wrapping, and since we have the hold the line, we obviously cannot be taking that. Climb the ladder, it's just less value. Glass Cannon is actually quite good if you are not going for Striker's Flail, which you are that is an out that you can go for, since you're already making 2 JGs, and the Steadfast is a great item. It's quite fine to be picking up this augment to not double down on damage jump, but Stand United is absolutely insane on this board. Any board that generally wants to fit in the Rast generally wants to fit in the Rast, you're going to be fine with Bronze for Life or Stand United. So we opted to go for level 8 here right before, even before securing that Viktor 2. And unfortunately still did not manage to find it, but did manage to pick up a Nami pair. It's a interesting thing to it's an interesting approach. Perhaps, obviously, with Stand United, he's going to be valuing this Nami quite a lot, and maybe he sees that as a potential power spike right there. But and generally, you're going to be fine also securing that Viktor on level 8 since you are at 32% odds. But it can be a little risky, definitely going on that little low in the econ. Perhaps he noted that, yeah, this player has managed to hit that Laoi tree, so we're not going to be having that much to roll for on this level 8. But now we're going to have a little bit of a rough time to make our way to level 9, since we are having sent pretty much through 0 right now. I'm also curious about the idea of what is behind holding onto this mech unit. I sometimes just hold on to these mech units right now since there's so many mech players, and I have gotten ganked by a backdoor Galio 3 a couple of times. Now for our last boon, we are quite fine to be picking up the Thresh, as this has the potential to be more gold. However, on average, this would be about 12 something gold, so it's going to be about the same value. So we just simply have to evaluate the what we have for our component. These are both frontline components, so I'm not too excited. The cloak could potentially become a adaptive helm if we wanted to as a Nami's item, but yeah, I would assume so. We are not too excited about a chain right there. So just going to be picking it, and let's see how much gold we get, and it's going to be 10 gold. A little roll, but it's completely fine. Had the potential upside. Now, going to see if we are finding our... So since we have managed to... This Viktor unit being so strong, we have managed to find to get a streak. And also interesting note to position here. Generally in these middle hexes, they're going to be a little bit vulnerable and we still get stunned, but... with the Viktor, if you're going for item as for ideal positioning, you're generally wanting to have him hit the clumps. Like, he's very good at punishing clumps if you're able to. And sometimes in the positioning way, if we are going to have something like a way to find to a solo frontliner, if they're doing is the wrap around it and you're getting that Viktor's drone onto the solo frontliner, you're going to be doing a crazy amount of damage. And obviously I believe he's also at this point experimenting. As you can see here, we got ganked there, but there's too much value aboard there. With the pike tree is very strong in their setup as well. Unfortunately, that means that we do not finish the stage on a win streak. For our boon here, just going to be looking for another form of a AP item just to slot that Nami out, as we definitely wanting to be having a second carry right away right now. And especially since we are playing around a 2-star 3 cost. I'm going to be going for a roll down again, hopefully able to pick up some of these other upgrades, but we are contested in many ways, able to find that Nami too. So are we going to be saying that this is enough, this is sufficient for us to transition? We have to double down on the anti-heal right there. Well, it's going to be fine. Ensures that at least that many of the board is being sorry, not anti-heal, but anti-magic resist. And also, since the Viktor's drone flies around, you're not always guaranteed to be hitting the Nami targets that she has hit. Now, still a little bit on the lower of the gold sides, and even though with Aries, we're hoping that we're able to just be strong enough in order to secure our way there, but we might also potentially opt to roll if we find that something has opened up, and we are sitting on 6 Rust, so if we natural another copy, perhaps that would be a clear trigger for us to be considering rolling down for that Rust 3. Obviously Rust 3 can substitute as a tank for that Ilaoi 2. Now we find another Viktor and a Rust, so this is an interesting point to be considering if you are wanting to be rolling down. And for our items, we are now, ideally, obviously, you always want to be finishing 3 item units first if you can, but I think we definitely want to be having a little bit more items on this Nami. This Nami too, you should not also be shied upon. She can drop some nukes on the targets if possible. That's why the Jewel Gauntlet for her is also amazing of a pickup. But this is still very nicely displayed, how just playing off the tempo and the strength of this unit that truly has in it, that we are, even without the ideal item situation, still able to be in such of a healthy position when securing our top 4 here. So going to be transitioning one of those Archangels onto the Nami. As mentioned, the mana gen that you're gaining from the Archangel Augment, the staff, is not going to be useful on Viktor, as during his cast he's completely mana locked. And the upside of double stacking them there is that they reach the threshold of where they're gaining mana a little bit earlier. And simply having damage jump is going to provide and that is a little bit more damage. So we identify now that we have a potential player where we believe that we want to be rolling down, but and that some of your units have perhaps freed up, but we end up here in this 8 and 7 copies, a little bit unfortunate of roll down. This is the gamble you sometimes take on to the when playing on level 8 for your 3 costs. Into the fully 3-star anima board, we can just see they have so much more gold on their board, but this Viktor unit is an absolute monster. And now maybe we're going to also see a little bit shining on the 3-star department from him. Have to see how are we going to approach playing this out. And we can also see 3 players in the lobby. So we get the Viktor 3, but we can see the 3 players in the lobby decided to align themselves with Thresh. I do not really believe that to be the correct choice. I believe that playing especially on Andari, which is one of the better gods, you're wanting to be doing that. So are we going to be transitioning this Jailed Gauntlet now to Viktor? It seems so. Yeah, having just full damage, load lead damage into him is a very, pretty much the best way you can approach this guy. And into the too much value board that has managed to actually streak together quite well. And it seems that they, with the amount of free rerolls they farm, the thing is, it also runs 2 Timebreaker, right? So in this little stage, you're farming 5 rerolls. You can see that they are going for that Riven 3. Whenever they loot and they find the Riven 3, you just simply have to notice it when they're going to be hitting it. Also, that might have been a reason why we perhaps rolled down. I know Dishsoap is very aware of every board state on the game, and that's has said it's his advantage if he's essentially playing 8 games at the same time. And unfortunately did not find any ribbons on his roll down. But yeah, if you are playing the too much value board, you're farming 3 rerolls from the too much value and another 2 whenever you lose with the Timebreaker on stages 4. So since we're stuck on level 8 here, we're just going to be sending it. Last roll, we find that Ras 3, now that the player there saw that they are queuing into the Riven 3, they're just going to FF, and because we're definitely secured for a second place at least. But these melee carries sometimes are a little bit weak. Now we fully got ganked, so it just seems that they have a little bit too much value onto their board. But maybe this Viktor has the potential to somehow be able to burst down the the Riven. Going to transition our true tank items onto this Rust here, and then just the supporting ones onto the Lawi. And perhaps we're going to go for the swap in hopes to be able to burst her down. Going to be nicely, even though this seems like a doom spot, Dishsoap is still always trying to make the best possible. And we do get that Riven down to proc the stairs, very close, but unfortunately she just shows how much healing and damage through that Radiant IE. But it's still a very close fight, and in general, Dishsoap very well displaying how pure raw fundamentals combined with a strong comp can secure your placements and put you in a very good spots. Playing from that, either making the extra econ early on, then finding the cheapest way to make a strong board, and playing how many ways you can approach this comp. You can either play it from the semi-tempo spots or committing on level 7. We identified that our low is going to be contested, therefore we cannot be rolling on level 7. We want to be playing for tempo, and then when we find that we have to try to deny a 3-star, we are going to be picking up these extra copies on level 8 and can still finish them there on this kind of place. I would like to thank you for watching, and best of luck to all of you in your climbs, and I wish to see you in the next one. Have a good one.